John Holliday is the Executive Director of the Kentucky Office of Homeland Security. He was appointed in 2016, and his main job is to make sure that our state is as safe as it can be. We felt like this particular topic, workplace safety, is something that's on everybody's minds right now. We see it in the news every day. We know how dire the situation can be, but we also know with some preparation you can mitigate a lot of risk. And so we're very excited to have John come up and talk to us today about how exactly you can prepare your facilities and your workplaces as best you can to be prepared for the unexpected. Let's give a warm round of applause for John Holliday.
Good morning. How is everybody doing? Totally looks like a lively crowd out there, all 12 of you. Kind of reminds me of church. Why isn't anybody up front here? I promise you, we're not going to ask for some money or anything. Guys, it's great to be here this morning. 2.5 years ago, my boss, Governor Bevan, brought me onto the team. Prior to that, I was in East Africa. I was the Special Forces Liaison Officer to East Africa chasing bad guys. And I've learned since then, being in Frankfurt, it's a lot easier navigating through Africa chasing terrorists than navigating through the political landscape or minefields of Frankfurt trying to get things pushed across. Some of you lobbyists, I'm sure, can understand that. But here I am. And let me tell you something. When I first took the job, I had a full head of hair. I was a lot taller, and I used to enjoy sleep. And I don't think I've had a good night's sleep since I've been here. Here's the deal. Threats. They're ever evolving. Any type of threat you could possibly imagine. And I know who you guys represent. And a big dirty word to me, standard operating procedures and emergency action plans. Basically, in your industry or your industries, some leader assigns another leader to come up with an emergency action plan. He or she tasks that person. They come up with this big, thick plan, this big, thick book. And basically, that book sits up on a shelf year after year and just gathers dust. And really, that's not the point. The point, it should be fluid. We should be thinking about bad things happening constantly. I hate to say it, but we live in that society. Threats are constantly evolving. You see it on the news every day, you hear it on the radio, you watch on open source media. Bad things can happen. This morning, how many of you, when you walked into this room, did you just flash through your mind, what would I do if something bad happened? I'm curious. Anyone? Okay. Well, am I the only one? We're going to give you some elements, some things to think about. Bad things can be prevented. Just a little bit about the Kentucky Office of Homeland Security. That's what we do. We focus, pretty much our jurisdiction involves anything that affects the safety, security, and the well-being of the Commonwealth and all of its assets. We focus primarily on international terrorism, domestic terrorism, organized crime, cybersecurity. That's another thing you guys can bring us back for. I'll give you some cybersecurity classes as well at the usual level. And, of course, the 16 sectors of critical infrastructure. Manufacturing being one of those sectors. We follow those 16 sectors 24/7. Anything bad that can affect those sectors, we are constantly following those. Another thing that we do is we offer active shooter training, active aggressor training, you name it. Anything that can affect the safety, security of your community, your well-being, and so on, we have our hands in that process. We also allocate millions of dollars to communities, local governments, to augment their first responders and their governments to deal with pretty much anything that affects our communities. The money comes from the federal government. We have to allocate that money. And let me tell you, the big change that we've done since we've been here, it doesn't really matter who you know. We have pushed politics out of our office completely. I'm not a political guy. I don't play politics. I allocate resources based on critical need. Based on critical need, that's done through analysis and absolute evaluation, and we focus on the high-risk areas. So to give you a few things about what we do. My boss's vision for Kentucky is to be the undisputed center of engineering and manufacturing excellence in America. So, that kind of makes you folks in this room and those folks associated with this conference and your colleagues out there kind of rock stars. But again, you've got to think about safety. You've got to think about security. Instead of coming up with these generic emergency action plans, have drills, talk about emergency action in your conferences, talk about them in your meetings and so on. Always keep it forefront. Develop that muscle memory, if you will. For instance, developing that muscle memory. Since you're 16 years old, like me, I've driven. I've had a driver's license, right? So imagine you're going down the interstate. You're going about 80 miles an hour. Shame on you. But sometimes I have been guilty of that. I admit it. And you go over a hill. And coming at you in the opposite lane is a gray vehicle with sirens on top. It's obviously a state trooper. What is the first thing you do? I'm curious. Ma'am? Do you pull over immediately? All right. Well, that's honest. Okay. You slow down. What do you do? Okay. Well, actually, what you don't realize you're doing multiple things all at once. Within a split second, within an element of a second, your heart is increasing. Ding, 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 ding. Your eyes are totally focused on that police officer. This is all happening in a split second. You slam on the brakes. You're constantly thinking about, oh my gosh, more points off my record. My insurance premiums are going to raise. Da 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 da. That's what's happening on that split second. Take that comparison and apply that to an active shooter. What we want to do this morning is to raise your awareness, possibly provide you some tools for your toolbox to maximize your survivability in the event that it happens. Kentucky Office of Homeland Security, we don't deal in certainty. We deal with probability. My teammates, they're intel geeks. They're intelligence geeks, and we're constantly conducting analysis on the numbers and so on. And we're trying to develop that probability factor of something bad happening, whether it's to do with the 16 sectors of critical infrastructure or what have you in Kentucky. And our job is to equip you with those tools, to equip you with the resources needed, monies and so on, and information. Having the right information is half the battle. Knowing what threats and hazards exist is really half the battle, and then thinking about it. So one way we get information and resources out to you is through the internet, through open source communications, through social media. How many of you have a social media account and you have access to it on your cell phones? How many of you? Okay. Well, do me a favor really quick, if you don't mind. I know this is very unconventional, but go ahead and take your cell phones out. 3/4 of you already have them out looking at them, which is awesome, as long as you're looking for good information. So go ahead and pull those out. And do me a favor. Go to either Twitter, go to Facebook, and in the search engine, put in Kentucky Office of Homeland Security. Go ahead and do that. I'll give you a second. How many speakers asked you to do that? Okay? Like our page. I promise you we don't put anything out that's political in any way, shape, or form. Again, I'm not a political person. You can challenge me that anytime you like. We put out useful information for yourselves, for your community, for your families, and that's how we put out most of our alerts so the masses can grab a hold of those resources. Some of our posts, we get over 400,000 likes and so on. So keep yourselves informed. Keep thinking about the potential of bad things happening. What are you going to do? Just think about this. What are you going to do right now if a person comes in that door and just starts shooting and yelling? What are you going to do? Okay? We're going to give you some tools to put in your toolbox. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce to you one of our analysts, our program coordinator, Jenny Lacy. Jenna has taken information from all over the nation, all over the world, and she's taken little bits and pieces of facts that we feel will increase your survivability. And let me tell you something, this information that we're giving you, actually, it's not going to guarantee you survive something terrible, but what it's going to do is increase your survivability. If you think about it, if you share your thoughts and this information with your family members and your workmates and so on, perhaps we can increase their survivability factor. So without further ado, give her a big hand, Jenna Lacy.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jenna Lacy. As Executive Director Holliday said, I'm the Program Coordinator with the Kentucky Office of Homeland Security, where I have served with this office since November of 2000 last year. First off, I gotta say, it is a true honor for me to be in front of you today. My absolute hero, my grandfather, after he got out of the Navy, was an industrial engineer, and he provided for my mom's family and for me my whole life because of the work that he did. He was in the candle business in Honolulu, Hawaii for 40 years, and that got their 4 kids through school. So it's an honor for me to be here, just knowing, just coming from a family business and knowing that you have to wear a ton of different hats just to make it work. Teamwork is the core of manufacturing. And so what I'm going to be talking about with you today, the purpose of this presentation is to give you a few tools to help increase your survivability should you find yourself in an active shooter situation. So the first thing we're going to talk about is how to recognize the behavioral indicators that we're seeing on social media now that are linked to possible future active shooters. So what is it? So what would that look like? Something like a Facebook post with a picture saying, "Hey, I'm going to shoot up this school tomorrow. Get ready." That's the kind of information that we need at Homeland Security. That's what has to be reported. The second thing I'm going to talk to you about is how to report it. 1-866-ION-KENTUCKY. Please call us if you see anything on social media, if you hear about any person who is talking about harming children, harming a school, please call us. We have 6 analysts that are ready and willing and linked up to the right resources, FBI, etc., to intervene and help stop this from happening in the future. And the third thing I'm going to show you is the Department of Homeland Security's Run, Hide, Fight video, which I'm going to break down run, hide, fight. What's that look like? Running isn't just simply running. It's walking into a room and having a plan of where to run before a bad situation happens. So I want you to think about throughout this whole presentation, what would you do if this person walked into this room through any of these exits? What would you do? How would you run? How would you fight? How would you survive? What tools around you? Look around your desk. What tools around you do you have to use? Is a water bottle useful? Is a microphone useful? Is your shoe useful? Or is your glasses useful? Is the camera back there useful? How can you impair somebody from hurting you as a last resort? Obviously, a lot of us are going to want to run first, fight second, hide third, but you might have to do that in any combination in any situation to get out of there and to make it out of there alive.
911, what's your emergency?
This is a very graphic video. Columbine shooters, if anybody's uncomfortable, it's 2 minutes. Please step out and come back and we'll fill you in.
Can you tell me where you are? How many people? Can you see the perpetrators? Can you see the guys with the guns? Are you inside or outside? Check that.
Hello?
Can you tell me where you are?
Hello?
Can you tell me where you are?
They're shooting in the school.
Where are you at?
Help me. Turn the fucking shooter. Shut the fucking top.
Perpetrator has the phone. You got the perpetrators on the phone.
Did you see her?
Can you pick up?
Hey, everybody! Hi.
Several people in the room.
Okay. It looks like it froze, but the rest of the video was the Columbine shooters taking their guns and going on their desks and just killing the people that were hiding under there because they didn't implement run, hide, or fight. And there's a specific part in the video that I wanted to point out. There's a girl who's under the desk who's screaming, "No, no, 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 no." She's literally in a state of frozen. She's frozen. She's in what we call black. She can't run, she can't hide, she can't fight. She is just, sometimes this happens. So the purpose of this training today is to get you to think about how not to freeze. She had 4 or 5 seconds to run, to hit him, to grab his gun, to hit him in the face with his own gun, to do something, kick him in the shin. and she didn't do it. And it's heartbreaking because she was shot in the face twice. You guys might know her name. Her name is Cassie Burnell from the Columbine shooting. Okay. So, commonalities. Let's talk about behavioral commonalities. Can anybody tell me, just off the top of your head, what do you think some of these guys have in common? Anybody? What do you think, ma'am? Home issues, yes. There's a lot of domestic issues that these guys come from, absolutely. Does anybody else have an idea? This is one of the most interesting parts of this whole presentation. I'd love to get some input. Sir, what do you think? Antisocial, yeah. A lot of them aren't really good at making friends. That's true. The top five, active shooters, every one of them told us that they were going to do it before they committed the act. Now, how did they do that? That's what we're here to talk about today. Virginia Tech shooter posted pictures on the internet, and I'll come back to this slide. Posted pictures on the internet. That's him in the top left. That's a warning. If you see something like this, please share it with Homeland Security. Okay. Who knows the second guy? Does anybody recognize the second guy in? That's a Valentine's Day massacre Parkland shooter. He killed 17 people. The second column, this is Snapchat. There are 3 pictures with text across. The first one says, Edison and SSH don't come to school. They tried to make it cryptic, like SSH. Who's SSH? Well, cops arrested them because they posted it on their Snapchat. We were able to figure it out. The second one says, round 3 on Florida on Tuesday, smiley face warning. Yeah, that's a warning. Definitely. Please report that. The last one is might hit you a little bit more home. Be ready for school Monday, Jessamine County. It's right down the street. There were over 2,000 threats made by students in the state of Kentucky within 2 months after the Parkland shooting in February. Kids think this is a game. They go to jail for this. It costs over $1,000 for Kentucky Resources to investigate one post. Okay, so this is a serious issue. James Holmes, top right, told his therapist that he fantasized about killing a lot of people 6 weeks before the shooting, but she didn't say anything. Now, I don't know her, but I would say something. Jared Lautner, dear reader, I'm searching today with every concern. My shot is now ready for aim. The hunt, a mighty thought of mine. Now, that's a more of a complex threat because it's somewhat implied. But please be sensitive to what people are saying emotionally. Similar, when somebody walks in the room, you get a beat for people, how they feel. Is there anybody in here that wants to kill me? Just when you're on social media and you're reading through it, look for warnings. Look for things to report. Start reporting. Start pushing it at us because we have the right connections to intervene and to help stop it. And the last one, of course, in the bottom right is the Parkland shooter, that he wants to be a professional school shooter, which I discussed. So the Kentucky Intelligence Fusion Center, where I work, did a study of Kentucky and found that 49% of high schoolers made threats. These are pie charts of who's making the threats. Almost 50%, almost half of all the threats were high schoolers. And a lot of high schoolers have phones and have some issues that make sense. 38% were middle schoolers. Well, how are they doing it? How are they making these threats? Well, 34% of them are coming out on social media, like the previous slide. Most of them are coming out in the passive form of making a threat. 32%, which comes in number 2, is that they're telling somebody. They're like, hey, man, if you think about an active shooter who, before he does it, must be going through a lot psychologically. It's going to spill out. They're going to tell somebody. They're going to hint it. They're going to throw it out there. So please listen for those indicators. Please report it. I'm pushing this a lot. I'm very passionate about this topic. My cousin was at the Route 91 Vegas shooting, where Stephen Paddock holds the record for the largest mass murder on U.S. soil. Unfortunately, by the grace of God, my cousin was a sniper in the Marines and had all the tactical experience to get out. Now, gratefully, he grabbed his 2 sons and his wife and was able to get their friends under the bleachers. So in Run, Hide, Fight, which I'm about to show you, he implemented run and hide. And he has training, yes, but a lot of us aren't Marines. A lot of us don't have tactical experience. So what are we going to do to fill in that blank, to supplement that survival tool? Well, Run, Hide, Fight is going to help us do that. So where are these active shooter events really taking place. Most over within 10 or 15 minutes, and about 60% of the active shooters are killing themselves before the cops get there. So it's so frustrating, and they just go in and they commit this huge, horrific mass murder that affects so many people, and then they just take the easy way out. 60% is over before police arrive. 70% occur in schools, movie theaters, churches, office buildings, restaurants, and concerts. The Kentucky Intelligence Fusion Center has a great product that can tell you how to harden a soft target, that is, how to make a very vulnerable facility, such as manufacturing, harder to infiltrate. Again, I'll have my business cards over there by the door. Email me, and I will send you that product. It was done by our critical infrastructure analyst, Kayla Matola. She's wonderful, and she really covered all of the bases. It's a wonderful product, so please get a hold of me. Excuse me. So there are two ways to report information to the Kentucky Office of Homeland Security. The first one is you can call 1-866-EYE-ON-KENTUCKY, or you can report it anonymously to our website, and it's right up there. It's homelandsecurity.ky.gov. When you go to our webpage and you scroll down, let's see, I got a pointer here. You scroll down to the bottom and you put report suspicious activity. And I thought it was, I always try to find gaps in how to make the system work for you a little bit more. So what I thought to do is we're going to put a box here one day, and it's going to be an upload box. And if you see somebody on Snapchat, Facebook, Instagram, take a screenshot of it, and then you can upload it to us. So we're working on putting that feature in right now. Okay. Lieutenant Colonel Jeff Cooper was a major influence in the firearm industry. A lot of people who have CCDWs or concealed carry licenses know who he is. This is a paradigm where we look at completely unaware, have the typical teenager looking at their cell phone and just have absolutely no idea, or the person in the movie theater who's so engaged with the movie that they're not looking at who's coming in. Well, that's how James Holmes got in. He took out a lot of people at that Aurora movie theater. So that would be white. Yellow is where the Kentucky Office of Homeland Security wants you to be. And the fact of the matter is, ladies and gentlemen, as Executive Director Holliday said, we don't live in the same world anymore. We can look at these active shooter trends and the way that ISIS has influenced and radicalized American citizens, such as the Pulse shooter and so on. We need you to be in yellow. We need you to figure out how to find that healthy balance of enjoying your life, but also being aware of the exits, also being aware of the tools around you, also being aware of any strange people that walk in, and also being aware how to report it. This is, unfortunately, it's the new norm. Orange. Let's just go through like a little example. So if I go out to dinner with my family, I'm probably feeling really good. I'll be with my grandmother. Her and I are really close. We go to church together. And I'd probably be in white. But because I want to make sure that she's okay, she's old, I don't want her to fall, I'm kind of always in yellow. I'm her escort. She holds on to me when we walk around. I'm kind of always watching her step, getting the door, helping her out. I'm in a state of yellow. And I'm comfortable with that because I'm doing an act of love, but I'm also protecting us. And so let's say we go out to eat. I'm in a state of yellow, and we sit down, and I hear a rustle around the corner. Okay, well, now I'm in a state of orange because what was that? That was out of the norm. And I have identified a fight. Once I identified it, I'm in red, and we got to move. We got to either run, hide, or fight. Well, I'm with an 88-year-old. If anybody's going to fight, it's probably going to be me. She's probably going to have to hide, or we're going to have to run out together. So it's just something that I think about every time we go in church. If there's an active shooter that comes in our church, how am I going to get out? Because our church, like a lot of them, are so vulnerable. And it's just something that I go through in my head. Black is where that poor girl I was talking about who was under the table at Columbine who froze and was just like a deer in headlights, could not move, and she had 4 or 5 seconds to get out of there, and unfortunately was killed. So this is run, hide, fight.
It may feel like just another day at the office, but occasionally life feels more like an action movie than reality. The authorities are working hard to protect you and to protect our public spaces. Sometimes bad people do bad things. Their motivations are different. The warning signs may vary, but the devastating effects are the same. And unfortunately, you need to be prepared for the worst. If you were ever to find yourself in the middle of an active shooter event, your survival may depend on whether or not you have a plan. The plan doesn't have to be complicated. There are 3 things you could do that make a difference. Run, hide, fight. First and foremost, if you can get out, do. Always try and escape or evacuate, even when others insist on staying. Encourage others to leave with you, but don't let them slow you down with indecision. Remember what's important, you, not your stuff. Leave your belongings behind and try to find a way to get out safely. Trying to get yourself out of harm's way needs to be your number 1 priority. Once you are out of the line of fire, try to prevent others from walking into the danger zone and call 911. If you can't get out safely, you need to find a place to hide. Act quickly and quietly. Try to secure your hiding place the best you can. Turn out lights, and if possible, remember to lock doors. Silence your ringer and vibration mode on your cell phone. And if you can't find a safe room or closet, try to conceal yourself behind large objects that may protect you. Do your best to remain quiet and calm. As a last resort, if your life is at risk, whether you are alone or working together as a group, fight. Act with aggression. Improvise weapons. Disarm him. And commit to taking the shooter down, no matter what. Try to be aware of your environment. Always have an exit plan. Know that in an incident like this, victims are generally chosen randomly. The event is unpredictable and may evolve quickly.
Lacy, get my back.
The first responders on the scene are not there to evacuate or tend to the injured. They are well trained and are there to stop the shooter. Your actions can make a difference for your safety and survival. Be aware and be prepared. And if you find yourself facing an active shooter, there are 3 key things you need to remember to survive. Run, hide, fight.
So that was run, hide, fight. I'm curious what you guys think about it. Let's go through it just a little bit. So the first thing that run, the subtext of run in Homeland Security means have an escape plan, because you're just going to be running blind if you walk into a room and an active shooter starts lighting up everybody in this room. So just take a minute to look at the exits. There's one there are two there are two doors over here. I'm not sure if it looks like a wall behind me. I don't think you can get behind, but just when you start going into restaurants or convention centers or any place where there's a large population, remember, large populations are always the prime target for active shooters or terrorists. So if you go to a concert, if you go to a restaurant, if you go to a parade, those kinds of things, just keep in mind, Boston bombing happened in a large place. Why? Because there are more people to hurt. That kind of stuff. The other part of run is leave your belongings behind, and I think instinctually we will do that. But just remember not to bring your cell phone. Keep in mind, just make a mental marker that if somebody comes in here and starts shooting, you will find somebody who has a cell phone eventually. Leave your phone here and take off. Evacuate even when others won't. That's a hard one to say. I really hate saying that one, and they did a good job of outlining it in the video. If you notice, when the girl went under the desk and the guy was like, no, come on, and he grabbed her in like a one fell swoop, like grabbed her and went at the same time. Like he gently willed her into coming with him so that he wouldn't create any attention to the scene and that he could help her survive. Help others escape if possible. Like I said, don't move the wounded unless you have time, because if there are multiple active shooters in one place, it's going to be really hard to get out of there if you're dragging someone. And again, I hate to say that, an executive director, Holiday, and I have talked about that, but that's just the truth. We're talking about your survivability today. Keep your hands visible. If there's an active shooter going on and the cops get here very quickly and I'm running out of the building and I look like this, what looks like it's in my hand? Is the cop going to know the difference between a remote and a gun? Probably not. So make sure you put everything down and keep your hands and your fingers, make sure they can see between your fingers. You don't want to be mistaken for the shooter. And call 911 when you're safe. Does anybody know the difference between covering and concealing? Okay. Covering is putting something between you and the shooter that is basically bulletproof. You know that saying, take cover, get under something so you don't get hurt. Concealing is just maybe if you have to, maybe putting a tablecloth over you so you can conceal yourself, like conceal and carry. Well, my jacket isn't bulletproof, but you can't see my gun. So if you can layer this approach and hide, it'll serve you. Hide out of the shooter's view. That's a good one. Lock the door and block the entry if you can. I know a lot of schools are getting locks placed in their door, which is wonderful because my mom's a teacher and I do worry about her. And they have installed some barricades in her school in Louisville, so I'm really grateful for that. Silence your phone. It would be very unfortunate if a text message is the thing that cost your life and drew the attacker to you. So if you do have your phone and you're in a place of hiding, put it on vibrate, turn it off, protect yourself in that way. And stay very quiet. Again, my mom's a teacher, so she has second graders, and 30 second graders trying to keep quiet in a room seems just very, very challenging to me. However, there was a church in Tennessee, I believe, that a 10-year-old gathered the preschool class into a room with the instructor and was able to help keep everyone quiet. And when there was an active shooter in the church, and as a result, the shooter went right by the room, didn't even see them. And that is the optimal experience that we want everyone to have should they be involved in an active shooter event. Okay, for fight, at the very end, they showed this layered approach of all these people just tag teaming this guy. One's got a fire hydrant, another guy's got a chair, a girl has, I'm not sure exactly what she has, but they have two objects in their hands. So if it comes down to fight, it's either going to be you're going to make the right moves with fighting and get out of there alive or injured, or you're going to die. So if you're fighting, make sure you commit to your actions, 100% willpower. Don't be that girl under the table. Just get up, get your friends to help, do whatever you have to do to take him down by incapacitating the shooter. Act with as much physical aggression as possible, and my favorite is improv weapons, because remember, every single object in this room that's made out of matter is here to serve you. Just be creative with it. anything can hurt you. All right, just a few places, and I'm not a physical tactical expert. However, this is a really great tool right here, where to hit the attacker: the eyes, the neck, the abdomen, the groin, the knee, the shin, the foot. And the eyes and the neck and the groin are going to be your top 3, so aim for those. This is a very fancy way of saying you can follow us on Twitter or Facebook, which Executive Director Holliday had you do, and we really appreciate it. We push out incredibly useful information. We've got these brilliant interns from the Patterson School who study Homeland Security and international diplomacy who intern with us and just are insane researchers, and they do a wonderful job. I'm also the internship program manager, and so I see firsthand their work. I edit their work before I publish it on Facebook, and our deputy director gets involved, and he is also brilliant. So please follow us, because we will push out very useful information that could help you one day. So just to recap, this is pretty much my presentation. I went over the behavioral traits of how to recognize a behavioral shooter either online or in person. I talked about where to report it, and thank you, ma'am, for having me articulate that a little bit better. 1-866-I on Kentucky. And we went over the survival tools of run, hide, fight. So does anybody have any questions? Yes, ma'am. That's a great question. That hasn't come up because I think a lot of people in our office already carry guns. But that's a really great conversation to talk with your boss about and see what the policy is with that, because I think it might be different for each manufacturing place. But yes, ma'am, that does come up sometimes. Yes, ma'am. We are in the developing stages of this program right now, but yes, ma'am, we are happy to go anywhere that the school needs us to go, whether it be high school or college. I think middle school and elementary. There's while you brought that up, there is a great source, and I want all of you to remember this. It's Kentucky State Police's active shooter product, and they cater to younger kids. They know how to push a concept for them that is educational, but it doesn't make them afraid, and it's called Be Prepared, Not Scared. And they have 4 levels, ranging from, hey guys, how you doing? Have you ever played hide and seek? Oh man, well let's say the guy who's chasing you is a bad guy. What do? Just simple, sweet, easy ways for them to understand the concept of a bad guy without scaring them to death like this probably is done for you. And they go all the way down to level 4, which is, I think that they bring in like guns without bullets, and they actually create a scenario for you to, whoa, what would I do if that gun went off next to me? So it's called KSP, Be Prepared, Not Scared. So I hope that answers your question. Any other questions?
Manufacturing facilities, should we look toward police offices here, or maybe our local law enforcement to give active training in that? Yes, we all have the PowerPoint presentations that says go do this, go do that, but so many times one of us are given that message and it goes whoop,
Yep.
over their heads.
That's a great question. For tactical training, contact KSP or your local police law enforcement here. I'm sure they have a program where they can bring in more tactical experience of what to do. So absolutely. We're more informational because we're a bunch of analysts and not a bunch of Jason Bournes, even though we might tell people that sometimes. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
How can we not be so insensitive or just let it become an everyday occurrence and stay aware?
And that's a really good point. It is so easy to be desensitized. Okay, she said, how do we become sort of, if I may rephrase, not desensitized to all the actions, and how do we stay aware? Is that was your question? And my question is this, my answer is this, just remember, run, hide, fight, and just remember that we live in a world where situational awareness needs to be increased into yellow. Always remember that yellow state. Find your own medium of, I'm enjoying my life, but I'm also situationally aware. Think about me and my grandma when I'm walking her into a restaurant. I'm situationally aware because she's very vulnerable, but I'm loving on her at the same time. So that's my balance. And with the media, it's kind of a tight rope for me to walk down. I watch what I need to watch, and I don't look at the rest. Again, for me personally speaking, a lot of it is clickbait, is what I call it, and a lot of it makes whoever angry, but I just focus on what my boss wants me to focus on, and usually it's sort of independent of it. So know your sources. Maybe know your sources online. We're a great source. We don't push out anything political. We just give you the facts, and we have incredible analysts in the Fusion Center who work to give you great information. Yes, sir.
Really appreciate your presentation and the tools. The media coverage of these events can create the perception that they're common, but what is the statistical probability that an active shooter event will happen on a given day?
That's a great question. Huge country, millions and millions of people, it's very low. And the media does really kind of blow it out of proportion. But it is an increasing trend. There have been more active shooter related deaths in 2017 than the last 5 years combined, and a lot of that had to do with the Vegas shooter killing so many people. So it's a spike, but that man had a tactical advantage which we'd never seen before. So we factor that into how to be situationally aware. Maybe if you go to a concert, maybe look at the hotels around you. Is there any broken windows? That's another way. But I'm happy to push you any further statistics later on. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you all very much for your time.